With us on The Real Story, it's that time of year. Applications are being submitted for Connecticut's many colleges and universities, but big changes are already underway. A more than 5-year back and forth is ending with the official merging of 12 of Connecticut's community colleges into one, quote, CT state. So what does that mean for current students and prospective students? We're going to talk about that and more with the president of the Connecticut State College and University System as we take a look at the current and changing landscape of higher education here in our state. Thank you so much for joining us, President Terrence Cheng. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And in person, because the last time we talked, I think, was when you were first coming into this position. It was on Zoom because of COVID, so great to have you in person. Appreciate
It's great to be here.
You coming up to Hartford. Okay, so first of all, let's just start with the basics here. For someone watching, can you explain to them what the CSCU system is?
Absolutely. The CSCU system, Connecticut State Colleges and Universities, is comprised of 17 institutions and campuses right now. We have 4 universities, Southern, Western, Central, and Eastern. We have 12 community colleges, and we have Charter Oak State College, our online institution. So altogether, we serve about 85,000 individuals, and we confer about 12,000 credentials every single year.
That's incredible. It's so many people here in our state getting that education. Okay, let's talk about enrollment right now, because this is an issue. We're seeing enrollment at colleges all across the country dropping. They're dropping nationwide. I want to read this statistic right here from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center this past June, that 1-year decline of 3.5%, meaning 600,000 less students than a year ago. And they're also seeing the largest spring enrollment decrease since 2011. Why do you think that is?
So the enrollment decrease is not a Connecticut phenomenon. It is actually a phenomenon that is striking various parts of the country. The Northeast and New England in particular is being hit very hard because of demographic reasons. So we have a shrinking population of college-ready individuals in New England, and we also have fertility rates, birth rates, immigration rates, migration rates, and unfortunately all of them have been working against New England and against the Northeast. So what we're experiencing here is not unique. I will say that it's been happening probably since 2010 when we were at the apex of our enrollment, and COVID has really exacerbated that. So there's a variety of factors that are really impacting our enrollment right now.
Sure. Now that we're, 2.5 years into the COVID situation, do you feel like you're seeing a bump up of people trying to enroll since 2020 happened?
We're stabilizing our enrollment right now. So at our community colleges, we are flat or near flat, and we're seeing far less decline at our universities, and Charter Oak enrollment has also stabilized. So we feel very positively that we're starting to reach a point where we can start to plan for some growth.
Yeah. How do you combat that? How do you get to the place where you can say, okay, we can start planning for growth?
Well, we have to look at what's going on out in the field, as they say, understand what the needs of the students are, and I think that's really the key, to understand that we're at a turning point. We're at a turning point in higher education where we have to adapt what we provide to the needs of the 21st century. So our curriculum has to be more aligned with the needs of industry and the needs of society. We have to look at what students need, because students today don't function the way I did back in the 80s and the 90s, right? The care of the total student with wraparound services, the types of programs that they're going to feel are valuable to the market and in their careers. So the totality of these pieces have to come together, and that's what we're trying to address.
Now, you were a first-generation student.
That's correct.
I know we talked about it during our first interview, but there are a lot of people, I imagine, who think of college and say, I don't know if that's within my reach. I don't know if that's attainable. And as you're trying to increase enrollment and encourage people to come and do the university system, what do you say to these families and these students?
I would tell them that the value of the experience you're going to gain at CSCU institutions is second to none. The quality of the education you'll receive, the quality of the training you'll receive, plus the affordability factor, it's really key. We are going to have a small debt load, if any, depending on the kind of institution you attend. that will really allow you to have flexibility as you move beyond our institutions. So once we continue to sharpen and align what we offer in the classroom with the needs of the real world, I think the value proposition is enormous, and I would encourage everyone, whether it's in healthcare, technology, business, or bioscience, education, we have programs for everybody.
Yeah, no doubt that cost, certainly a factor for a lot of colleges across the United States as
Yes.
well, as can you make what the debt that you create from
Yes.
college. So I know you were just talking about that.
That's
Okay,
right.
let's talk about this CT State. This has been
Sure.
a number of years in the making. We now have the 12 community college campuses, now part of one application
Yes.
for students. So explain to me the consolidation and why it's happening.
So the unification of the community college campuses into one single community college entity is really instrumental for student success. When we looked at the statistics and our student success outcome metrics, we're not doing as well as we should. We want students to graduate faster. We want them to be retained at a higher rate, and we want them to ultimately come out and be very successful. And when we look at those metrics honestly, we weren't doing as well as we wanted to. So by taking down barriers within this unification of the campuses, we're going to eliminate certain fees. We're going to unify curriculum so that you can take the same curriculum that is impactful at various campuses. We're going to allow transferability of credits, and we're going to allow a symmetry into our universities as well that we think is really going to be a game changer for how education moves, flows, and ultimately has an impact in our communities.
So it's essentially streamlining the different colleges to
That's
get on a
correct.
certain path to make sure that they can the students are achieving a certain standard or being provided with a certain standard. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. The streamlining is key, but also the implementation of best practices and wraparound services at all of our campuses. So instead of trying to recreate the wheel 12 times across 12 different campuses, now we can have a unified set of standard best practices that we can implement across all of the institutions, and we think that's going to affect thousands and thousands of people.
And I know, this was going to be one of my questions, was the plan is being called Student First. Why is that? But it sounds like you just explained it, because you're trying to create an environment and know the education that's being provided for these students.
That's exactly right. These students, our students within our system, and especially within our community college system, are students that oftentimes will not have a choice in terms of what institution they may go to. We say all the time, we don't choose our students choose us, and we feel that's a great honor. We have to do right by that. So we have to make sure that they are receiving the best that they can and should receive within our resources, and that's exactly what we're striving for.
I mean, it wasn't without its controversy, right? We were
Sure.
reading a little bit too. There's been some complaints, mainly from faculty, who feel like the consolidation with that central system office has been a, quote, hostile takeover, and that the accreditation of the colleges themselves didn't need to be taken away from the individual colleges to ensure that financial long-term viability. What's your response to faculty who's given you pushback?
So I've been in this seat for 18 months. I can't really speak to some of the decisions and conversations that were made previous to my arrival, but I'll tell you that we take faculty governance and shared governance very seriously. Of course, any major, bold, audacious endeavor is going to be imperfect. I can't say that we've done everything right, but I'll tell you that we listen very closely, and we want to have as much dialogue as possible with all of our constituents, and particularly our faculty. So we're working right now closely with groups of faculty leaders to try to create that shared governance model, and we think it's going to be a success.
Let's talk about the specific details with this plan. So for students applying in the spring, I'm told that they're applying to the different colleges like they normally would, right?
Correct.
It's the changes that are happening this fall. Tell viewers, if they have kids or if the actual students are watching, what they need to know.
So when you apply now to community colleges, you will apply through one single application, and you could apply to a particular location. But the beauty of this symmetry that we are creating is that if and when there's an opportunity or a need to actually move your education into a different region or location, you're going to be able to do that seamlessly. So let's say you went from Capital Community College to Gateway down in New Haven. You wouldn't have to retransfer, you wouldn't have to pay extra fees, you would be able to take the same exact curriculum, and you would be able to keep your academic momentum going.
Does the consolidation help with cost, the cost for students to apply? How so?
Absolutely. The cost for students is going to be reduced by eliminating many of the redundant fees across multiple campuses, right? So you're going to be able to have that kind of transferability of your body of work, so to speak, across all the different institutions. And the goal of the unification really is to have as few barriers as possible, because the more barriers there are, especially for this population, the more likely it is they won't come.
Let's talk about the legislative session that's coming up as well.
Sure.
And you've got the CT state merger going on here. What are your main priorities when it comes to the legislature? What do you want lawmakers to know about what you all have going on in the college and universities' needs here in Connecticut?
It's a great question. It's something we've been thinking about and planning for a while now. What I would like to impress on everyone is the fact that we are the largest institution of higher education in the state of Connecticut. We are the primary engine of social mobility for our state. And we are also a primary engine of workforce development for our state. So when we invest in CSCU, we're investing in workforce, we're investing in community impact, economic development, but we see all of this through an equity lens. All of the work that we do for CSCU, which will soon be a majority-minority institution, is a move towards closing the equity gap.
Very true. So do you have a plan in place of what you're going to ask the legislature for when they go back into session, or is it going to be, I would assume funding would help in any kind of way, right?
Funding is always helpful, and we certainly have ideas, and I'll tell you that one of the key pieces is that we need support to continue to align and create new programs and credentials and degrees that are going to be helpful to industry as well as to society. We want to create even more possibility for our students. So what does that mean? Wraparound services, mental health support. We have to really focus on the damage that has been inflicted by COVID, but also understand that young folks today and students and citizens today deal with pressures that have never existed before, so we have to have as much support for that as possible. We want to investigate the possibility of expanding our debt-free college program, PACT, and see if we can impact that type of program to an even greater body of folks. And the last thing I would say is that we have capital needs. There are facilities, operational, and infrastructure needs. For us to be a top-tier regional public system that does everything we should do for our students, that type of investment from the state is going to pay back multiple-fold.
President Cheng, thank you so much for coming on The Real Story here in person.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for us on The Real Story. If you want to watch these segments again, you can head to fox61.com, or you can download the Fox 61 News app and watch The Real Story every Sunday at 10 a.m. right here on Fox 61 or streaming on Fox 61 Plus. Have a great morning.